Yo, what up? How's it going? And welcome back for another video. Today, I'll be taking you guys through each augment. I'll be talking about what they do and when I think are some of the best times to take each of those augments. Now, why should you listen to me? If you're new here, I am a Challenger player. I've been Challenger since set 4, and I've played about 100 plus games on the PvE server. So I'm using that knowledge to help you guys out. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. Okay, real quick before we start and go through each of these, one thing I do want to say, sometimes Mobalytics has some of the augments in the wrong tier, and that is just because it's difficult to keep up with the devs. They change things constantly at this time of year, this time of the set. So just know that some of these tiers might be a little bit off, and a little bit of the numbers might be a little bit off as well. Again, the devs just change stuff constantly. So yeah, the other thing is the trait specific augments I will not really be talking about at all, because if you're playing that trait, then take that augment. You know, it's pretty simple there, because the main goal of this video is I want to show you guys when are some of the best times to take these augments so you can be in a better spot to start at the beginning of the set. So let's get into it. All right, first one, AFK. You cannot perform actions for the first 3 rounds. Afterwards, gain 20 gold. Now, this is insane to take in the early game if you can get offered it. To take it in the early game, because the 20 gold injection is insane. It doesn't matter if you lose the first 3 rounds. Doesn't matter. Getting extra gold at the beginning of the game just compounds over the rest of the game. Very strong. The only other situation you'd ever want to take this augment is if your board is extremely stable already and you know you're not going to make changes for the next couple of rounds. This can be very strong to take. Very good. All right, Ancient Archives, gain 1 tome of traits. This is in general. This is one of those general augments, so you can just take pretty much whenever you want. The only times you wouldn't want to take this if you just really don't think you benefit from having another trait, just based off of, or having another unit in a trait that you're playing based off of what your board looks like and the board you're going for. But in general, you can take this whenever you'd like. Very, very, very good. One thing about Tome of Traits, I'll just say, and this applies to all other times you can get Tome of Traits, is Tome of Traits always, it can be tailored, and they change the numbers for how many of the traits you're offered that can be tailored, just meaning they're tailored to the composition on your board. It tries to give you something that you can use. And that is always for your last player combat. So it doesn't work when you're versus environment. So when you're fighting Krugs or something like that, it doesn't work. So you need to make sure, if you want it to be the board, the current board, if you want it to be that, it'll be the board that you had in your last player combat. That's what the Tome of Traits will take into account when it's giving you your options. So just know that for the future. All right, Ardent Sensor, this is one coming back. A lot of these will be from set 6. So if you guys played set 6, you'll know how to use a lot of these. All right, Ardent Sensor. Allies healed or shielded by enchanters gain 50% stacking attack speed for the rest of combat, maximum every 2 seconds, gain a Lulu. In general, this is one that you can take late game if you know you're already going to play Mystics. It's much better to take late game when you can fit Mystics in, and this would be Mystics, not enchanters. I'm not sure if this is still in the game. We'll see. I haven't gotten this one offered to me, but it would be not enchanters. It would be Mystics instead. But yeah, this one better to take in the late game. Can be strong for your composition if you already are going to play a lot of Mystics, that sort of thing. But I'm not even sure if this is still in the game. All right, Ascension. After 15 seconds of combat, your units deal 50% more damage. This is not one you typically want to take really early on into the game, because you just don't know if you're going to have the type of composition that can use this. The type of composition that uses Ascension very well is when you have a stall focused comp. So like if you're playing Guardians, that's a very slow fighting comp. If you're playing something like Anivia, the damage comes out pretty slow. So yeah, if you know you're going to stall, playing something like Aoshin or Aurelion Sol, if you know you have a lot of frontline and your team really benefits from a longer fight, then take Ascension. Also, taking Ascension can be very good if the rest of the lobby is playing slow comps. Even if you're playing like an Assassin comp or something like that, you can still gain value from Ascension if the rest of the lobby is also, if they're playing very slow composition. So yeah, there you go. Assassin Art, played if you're taking Assassin. Astral, if you're playing Astrals. Axiom Arc 1, and so this will be in 3 different tiers, or maybe just 2. When your unit kills an enemy, they gain mana. This is a general one that's good most of the time. There are a few champions that this doesn't really work very well on. If your champion has a really high mana cost, it's not going to benefit nearly as much, but they can still benefit from it, of course. They can kill multiple units and gain that mana back. But you typically just take this. This is a general augment you can take whenever, but it is much better when you have units that you would want to have a blue buff on, but you don't have blue buffs. But I just played a Cannoneer game, and I took this, and it was very strong on Cannoneers because I had a lot of splash damage. My Tristana was getting a lot of kills. She was just popping up bombs. So yeah, if in general, it can be very good, but also it can be a good replacement for if you need to build a blue buff but you don't have it, you can get it there. If it's on your carry, someone who's going to be able to kill units. Cool. Band of Thieves, Gain of Thieves Gloves. This is a generally strong thing to take. You just get a Thieves Gloves. Very good early game. I really like taking this early game at 1-4, or I guess it's 2-1 now. But I do really like taking this early game because it's just really nice having a whole completed Thieves Glove in the early game. But it's something that you can take in the late game. If you take it in the late game, you typically just throw it on a tank, or maybe you like are going to play a random 2-star legendary and you don't have items for them. Take this and put it on your legendary, put it on like a Yasuo or Pike or something like that. You don't have items for them. This can be very good in that situation. So I would take this late game to put on a legendary unit, or early game to play on like an early game carry to give you that extra item, give you that boost in the early game. All right, cool. Best friends. Your units that start combat only adjacent to each other gain 15% attack speed and 15 armor. This is another one that is going to be tiered up. This is one that you just take. It's generally good augment. The only time you wouldn't want to take this is if you were stacking something like chalices or Zeke's, lockets, something like that. That's the only time you wouldn't want to take it. But in general, this one you can take whenever. And yeah, as it just says, you just have to place allies next to each other. They can be they have to be in pairs of 2s. So you have to kind of spread out your board a little bit. So if you need a board that needs to be all in one spot, then you wouldn't want to take this. So especially if you're playing something like Jade, you wouldn't want to take this. Okay, big friend, your units that start combat next to a unit over 2,000 health take 10% less damage for the rest of combat. Now this one can generally be good all the time, because late game, if you don't have a frontliner with 2k health, then I don't know what's happening, because late game, all of your frontliners will have 2k health. All the dragons will have 2k health in the late game. All the frontline dragons, at least, for sure. So you can gain value on this all the time. This is extremely good if you're playing a reroll composition. If you're rerolling a lot of units, like let's say you're playing Astrals. I played Astrals the other day, and all my units were over 2,000. So all my units took 10% less damage, and I didn't have to position weird to get that value. So if you're rerolling, very strong. And then also, in general, you can just take this whenever. It'll be fine. All right, Bruiser Heart. Yeah, take it if you're playing Bruisers. Built different. So if you guys didn't use Built Different last set, this is the same from last set. But if you didn't, your units with no traits active gain health, and they gain attack speed. And this will scale up on the different Built Different tiers. They put them in the same tier for whatever reason. I don't know why. But you usually take this only at the very beginning of the game at 2-1. You can take it mid-game sometimes if it's even allowed to be offered at that time. But generally, you would only want to take it at the very beginning of the game. And you want to use this augment in 2 different ways. You can either reroll 1 cost, and you could just like get a bunch of random 3-star 1 costs. It'll have this Built Different trait, and they'll be so strong. The other way you want to do this is you just want to play 2-starred units and try to get to fast 8, fast 9, something like that, and play around some legendary unit that you're going to buff with this stat, because these are insane stats. So like you could play like Yasuo with no synergies or something like that, Pike with no synergies. So something like that. That's generally how you use it. This will not be effective if you plan on playing a dragon, because a dragon automatically activates their traits by default, because that's how they work. So yeah, take this at the very beginning of the game, and the 2 styles are reroll or play for like a random legendary in the late game, and just play 2-starred units, and you'll be good to go. All right, Cannoneer, take it if you're playing Cannoneer. Cavalier, take it if you're taking that. Celestial Blessing, your units heal for a % of the damage dealt by attacks and abilities. Excess healing is converted into a shield. So Celestial Blessing is... so there's 2 main healing augments. There's Celestial Blessing and Thrill of the Hunt. Celestial is better to take later on in the game, because it is a %. And you don't deal a lot of damage in the early game. You deal more damage later on in the game. So if you have the option between Celestial and an option between Thrill... in the early game, you should almost always take Thrill. If you have the option in the late game, you should almost always take Celestial. That's just kind of how it works. But in general, this is a fine augment. You can take it at the beginning of the game. It is fine, but you get a lot more value the later the game goes on from the shield and from the % healing. Much better the stronger your units are. Combat training, your champions permanently gain 1 attack damage every time they kill a unit. Champions start with a 2 attack damage, like 2 added attack damage. They don't have 2 attack damage. If that wasn't clear there. So you want to take this early on in the game, obviously, and you want to take this if you're going to re-roll the units that are on your board. So like the most like insane example of getting this is like you get an Olaf at the beginning of the game. So like your Olaf will just stack AD this way, and he stacks AD with his passive as well. It's kind of insane. So you generally only want to take this if you want to play the units on your board, or if you plan on re-rolling mid game. Like it doesn't even have to be the units that are on your board. Like if you plan on playing for like a 2 or 3 cost reroll, even if they're not currently on your board, you'll still get a lot of value whenever you get to the mid game if you can transition to that composition. You definitely don't want to take this late game, and you probably can't even get offered it late game if I'm being honest. So yeah, take this if you want to reroll most of the time. That's gonna be your good situation. Cybernetic implants, your units equipped with an item gain health and attack damage. All of these cybernetics, by the way, I'm just going to talk about all of them at the same time. You are going to have the most value from this earlier on in the game. If you get an early cybernetic, because then you don't have to commit completed items. The later you take this in the game, you will have completed items. So you'll be able to get less value, obviously. So the earlier you can take cybernetic is usually the better. One situation where you wouldn't want to take your cybernetic is if you got like a gold opener where you got like, I don't know, 10 gold and you only got 1 item component. Maybe you wouldn't take it because you wouldn't be able to get a lot of value. But yeah, the earlier you can take cybernetics, the better. Very strong early game option usually. Double Trouble. If you have exactly 2 copies of a champion on your board, they both gain attack damage, ability power, armor, and magic resist. When you upgrade to a 3-star, you gain a 2-star copy of that unit. So as it just describes right here, guys, Double Trouble is very strong, but it's really only very good if you want to play rerolls. So if you're going to reroll like a 2 cost or a 3 cost, something like that, can be very, very, very powerful in that situation. It's pretty hard to make work in other situations. So really, if you only plan on rerolling, is when you want to take Double Trouble. Dragonmancer, we already know that. Electrocharge. When units receive a critical strike, they deal this scales throughout the game. Magic damage to nearby enemies, 1 second cooldown. This is going to be very good if you're playing a very tanky composition. If you're playing a stall-like composition like Guardian, something like that, or you just have like a god tank like Idus with 3 items or something like that, or if you're trying to stall Jades, stuff like that. So if you think you have a god tank, you have a tank with 3 items, it's going to live very, very, very long. You get a ton of value from this. Also, something to note with Electrocharge, stuff like that, very good to have Magic Shred. Like, it's very good to have a Spark on the person you want to get maximum value of Electrocharge on, because it is magic damage, so Spark is going to help that deal more damage, or having a Shiv on your backliner. Electrocharge is pretty good. Evoker Art, take you to play any Evokers. Exiles. Your units that start combat with no adjacent allies gain a 25% maximum health shield for 10 seconds. This is one of those ones that are generally good. You can take it whenever you want. I almost never take this augment because I don't like it. Because I do like building a lot of aura items, and taking Exiles can really, like, a lot of times late game, the best item you can get is an aura item. Or, the late game, the creeps will only, the late game PvEs will only give you aura items. So I don't like this augment, but this one you can take all the time. It's one of those general ones that are good. You can take it if you'd like. Featherweights, your 1 and 2 costs gain 25% movement speed and attack speed. As it says, guys, you want to take this if you're going to reroll 1 and 2 cost. Any other situation, you typically don't want to take it. You can take it for early game tempo, just to get ahead of the lobby. Just have your 1 and 2 costs pretty strong, but it is going to be a dead augment when you get to the late game. So typically only take this if you're going to reroll 1 and 2 costs. First aid kit, all healing and shielding received by your units are increased by 25%. This doesn't stack on other augments, so it will not stack on Thrill or Celestial unless they change that going into the set. But when I was playing on PvE, it did not affect my Thrill still. So it does not stack with other augments. So just know that. So this is going to be very good if you're going to build healing on your team, or you're playing a lot of healing style units. But typically I will take this if I'm building like a Gunblade or something like that. I already have one of those on my board. It can be very strong. Like, I'll play like Gunblade Yone and then take this. It just pops off. Or like if you're playing Rage Wings, it can be very good, obviously, because Rage Wings heal a lot. So yeah, if you already have healing on your board, you can take this. Also, it will stack on your Locket. So if you're Locket stacking, this can be very good as well. All right, Guardian Heart, Guild Heart, you guys know the deal. Item Grab Bag, gain 1 random completed item. This one is generally good all the time, but it's exceptionally good taking as early as you can, because just having an extra completed item on the early game is such a boost to your comp, and it's always going to be good, and it can give you direction. This is one of my favorite augments to take early on in the game, is extra items, because I could just take those items and it'll say, okay, the game will just tell me what type of composition I'm going to be playing, and that makes the game very easy for me. You can take this later on in the game if you're just lacking items, and especially you can take this later on in the game. Like a lot of times you'll get into a situation where you're like, hey, I could actually use a tank item. I could use an AP item. I could use an AD item. Like I can use whatever. So if you're in a situation where your items really matter, you just gain value from getting an item, take it. Also, I just really like taking it early game, very strong, and gives you direction for the rest of the game. Jade Heart, you know the deal. Late game specialist, gain 40 gold when you reach level 9. This one is hard to take. You would only take this if you are just having an insane early game. Never take this first augment. I don't even know if you can get offered at first augment. Almost never take it first augment unless you just want to have fun. I don't know. Like, I mean, it could work out, but probably won't. So like if you want to take this mid game or as your third augment, if it's even able to be offered there, that can be fine, but only if your spot is insane. You need to be really far ahead, or your board needs to already be stable. You need to already be planning on fast 9ing. You don't take this and then plan to fast 9. That just doesn't work. So take this if you're already planning to fast 9, and you can get a lot of value out of this 40 gold here. Can be very good. Luden's Echo, when your units cast and deal ability damage, their first target hit, and a nearby enemy take some magic damage that scales throughout the game. This is exceptionally good if you have units that'll cast quite a bit. You know, maybe you have like mages and you're building a bunch of mana. You know, you're playing like you're like Sojin stacking like somebody, you know, like an Aurelian Soul in the late game, or in the early game, you're like stacking a Rise or stacking a Nami, stacking a Heimerdinger. You can get a lot of value out of this. Situation where you don't want to take this if your units don't have abilities that hit people. Like if you're playing like Yone or something like that, like Yone is not going to do that. Shin isn't going to do that. Leona's not going to do that. Tarek's not going to do that. So you want to make sure you can gain value on this by playing units that actually deal damage with their ability itself, and it's exceptionally better if you took mana items early on in the game, but this one you generally take. It's going to add some extra damage to your comp. Also, just think about if you actually need extra damage in your composition when you're taking, if you're going to take this like late game or something like that. Sometimes it's better to have more stall, better economy, but yeah, so if you need more damage, you can take this, but make sure you can get value actually from it, because your units need to hit things with their ability. Mage Heart, you know the deal. Makeshift armor, your units with no items gain armor and magic resist. This is exceptionally good in the early game because you won't have committed items. Very, very, very good. This is one that's just generally fine to take all the time. This one is especially good if you are lacking frontline items, like you took a bunch of carry items and you got offered more carry items. You're like, oh man, how am I gonna stall? How am I gonna buy time? You can take this if you're lacking frontline items, can give you that frontline that you need. But it's really good early game because you don't have to commit your items. You can kind of hold, kind of be greedy, and you can look for like the best in slot item that you're looking for. So early game, or if you're just lacking frontline items. Meditations, your units without items equipped restore mana per second. Same idea as makeshift armor. You want to take this early game so you don't have to commit your items, kind of greed your items. In the late game, this can be fine if you have a lot of high value units that you're just not able to itemize. Like maybe you have like a Sona, or like maybe you have like a Sona and like a random Yasuo or a random Pyke, random Zoe, something like that, and you just can't put items on them. You can gain some value from this, but most of the time the best value is going to be early on in the game when you haven't committed your items. Mirage Heart, you know the deal. Mystic Heart, you know the deal. Mystic can just be generally good because you're probably going to play Mystic in your late game comp. Lulu is very good. Bard is very good. So it's pretty easy to fit into your composition. Pandora's Bench, gain 5 gold at the start of every turn. Champions in your third rightmost bench slots transform into random champions of the same cost. I actually practiced with this a lot, but like for making this video, I used this augment like 3 times today. Or maybe yesterday. This augment's kind of weird. You know, the 5 gold is nice. It's better the earlier you take it on in the game because you can like build your compositions for free. This one's generally fine to take. But you're playing for RNG, so just know you're playing for RNG. But yeah, Pandora's items, gain a random component at the start of each turn. Items on your bench are randomized. So this one is generally just good to take honestly at any stage in the game, but it's better the earlier you take it, because you can do the same idea with all the other stuff I just talked about earlier. You can just greed your items. You can get the best items you possibly want for your current board. Be very good. You can even remake your items later, but usually you just use Pandora's items to remake component items. You don't do it to remake completed items. You can, but that is really risky. But yeah, the earlier you take this, the better, because you can just get the best components that you want for your board. Can be very strong. Preparations, units on your bench gain 10 attack damage and ability power every round, up to 30. I don't really like this augment very much. This is good if you're rerolling, especially if you're rerolling, because while you're rerolling, you'll have a lot of the copies of your units on the bench, and you can gain value from that while you're doing that. So I like it if I'm rerolling. Other situations, I don't really like it that much, unless you have like unless you have like a 4 cost you're going to play or something, but you can't get it on your board yet, or you know you're going to be holding it on your bench for a while, it can be good in that spot, I guess, but it's really just if you're re-rolling, it's going to be a lot better. And you can gain value from this on the PvE rounds. You can just like put your carry on the bench for that round and then put it back in. You can do that, but that's just like kind of niche, but better if you're re-rolling for sure. Ragewing, you know the deal. Recombobulator. Champions on your board permanently transform into a random champion that cost 1 more. Cost 1 more. That costs 1 more. What? Oh yeah, sorry, I was just reading that word. I'm an idiot. Yeah, it'll up the cost. So if it's a 3 cost, it'll go up to a 4 cost. If it's a 4 cost, it'll go up to a 5 cost. A random one. And then you gain magnetic remover, so you can remove the committed items you have on those units. This one is for fun. Like it can be really good or it can be really bad. So just take it if you want to. Sometimes it pops off, sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, just know that. All right, Revel Heart, you know the deal. Scalesworn Heart, you know the deal. Second Wind, after 10 seconds of combat, your units heal 50% of their missing health. This is very good if you're running stall compositions. Very strong if you're doing that. Really, really, really good with Guardians. But yeah, if you're running stall compositions, very good. Shapeshifter, you know the deal. Shimmer Scale, you know the deal. Shimmer Scale is one you can just take. Like it's generally good to take in the early game because it's really easy to get 3 Shimmer Scale if you have a Cane and a Shimmer Scale Heart. All you need is a Volibear or a Aatrox. It is very easy to do. So I took this one today when I was playing, and I got 2 3-star legendary units because it was the freest early game of my life having all these Shimmer Scales. It was nutty. Anyways, yeah, generally pretty good. Very good in the early game. Stand United, your units gain 2 attack damage and ability power per trait across your team. This is very good if you're playing a non-vertical. If you don't know what vertical is, that's when you play a lot of the same trait. Like if you're playing, like if you go from 3 Jade to 12 Jade, you're on a vertical composition because just stacking the same trait on top of each other. That's what vertical means, because I might refer to it later on in the video. If you're playing non-vertical, so if you're playing a flexible composition, you're playing a lot of like 2 2 2 2 2, like 2 Revel, 2 Evoker, 2 Mystic, 2 Cannoneer, you know, like that. Gonna be very good. And also one other thing, it's much better on AD champions usually. The reason why is because AD champions have much better dual scaling usually. If you look at their traits, they'll have a magic scaling and an attack damage scaling on pretty much every single AD carry. I could be missing one, but if you look at something like an AP carry, they'll only have AP scaling. Usually you go to Sona, it'll only have AP numbers. I mean, she'll gain attack damage, but like who cares if she has attack damage? It doesn't scale her ability. So much better when you're playing AD compositions. Usually Switch Our Heart, you know the deal. Tempest Heart, you know the deal. Tempest Heart is another one you could probably take in the early game and just run it generally because it is very easy to have 1 Tempest on your board. You can play a Kiana, you can play Lee Sin, you can play an Ezreal. So it's really, really, really easy to play around. So this one you can generally take all the time. And then late game, you just have to play Ornn. And Ornn's a goated unit. He's really good. Thrill, I talked about it earlier, guys. This is the better healing option to take early on in the game because you get that flat 400 heal. It'll always be more than what Celestial will heal for you in the early game. You're not healing for 400 with Celestial on an auto attack, you know what I mean? So yeah, this is really good in the early game. Already talked about this one. Tiny Titans, your Tactician heals 30 health, grows larger, and has a maximum of 130 health. Tiny Titans, this one is not very good to take as your first augment. You'll be tempted to take it, but the problem with taking it as first augment is you will always be last pick on carousel. So you can't get a lot of value from having that extra health, because a lot of times when you have an extra health, you want to leverage that health advantage by being able to lose streak, so you can get an econ advantage, and then you can get carousel priority. Like that's one of the big benefits of playing an econ style. And if you take this as first augment, it is very difficult to play that style, but you can take it if you like don't care about your items. And you just want to play strongest board, you can totally take that. That's okay. But this is much better as second augment when you already have some of the core item components for your build. It's gonna be a little better. I will say this augment is probably a little bit better in this set because of the treasure dragon. It is easier to get the items that you want later on in the game. But I still would stick to the rule of it's better second augment than first augment. Only take a first augment if you really don't have any other options. And you just like this augment, you can take it first augment. That's fine as well. Triforce, your 3 cost champions gain health, starting mana, and attack speed. You want to take this if you're rerolling 3 cost. Pretty simple, right? All right, Warrior Heart, you already know the deal. Weak spot, your units attacks ignore 20% of the armor and reduce healing received by 50% for 5 seconds. This is in general just a very decent augment to take at any stage in the game. The only time you don't want to really take this is if you're playing like AP and you already have like a Morello. So you already are reducing their healing, so you don't need that, and you're playing AP, so you don't need this. But in general, this can be good all the time. In the early game, most of the damage is attack damage. So even if you end up playing an AP comp, you can still get value from the armor shred for the early and mid game for sure. I mean, you still get a little bit of value in the late game, but not as much as you'd like. But this in general, Good. And reducing healing is great. Like just having that in your build and you don't have to think about building a Morello or anything like that. That can be very decent. So decent to take all the time. Obviously, the best situation to take this if you like need armor shred and you weren't able to build a last whisper. This can give you that for you. It can be very good. Whisper heart, you know the deal. All right, let's go to the tier 2 augments. Now there are more tier 2 augments now than there are tier 1s. Tier 2 is now the new normal. So you will get more tier 2 augments. It's more likely for you to get tier 2 augments than tier 1 augments in your games now. Their odds have flipped with each other because that's what they wanted. Very cool though. All right, Assassin Heart, you know the deal. Astral Crush, you know the deal. I'm not going to talk about those ones. Axiom Arc, we already talked about this. Beast Den, this is a shapeshifter specific, so if you're playing shapeshifters, take it. Best Friends, we already talked about it. Better Together, this is one of my favorite augments in the game because I like to play a very aggressive style. I like to play with an HP advantage rather than playing like econ. I like to play really aggressive, strongest board, assert my dominance, that sort of style. And this really helps that style. Aura items that buff your team have their effects increased by 33%. Gain a Locket of the Iron Solari. Anyways, so there are two circumstances that you want to take this. If you get it offered as first augment, take it. It's going to be very good. Locket is one of the best early game items in the game. Has been for a long time, bar none. Very good. So you can just take this and then you can locket stack the rest of the game. You can build other aura items, or you can just use the one locket, build maybe a second locket and a Zeke's or something like that, and then build regular items. That's fine. But you get insane value from this in early and mid game, and it just basically will secure you a top 4 if you like play a decent board and you stack a couple lockets and build one Zeke's. You'll be good to go most of the time. It's very, very, very strong. So I really like it taking it early game. If I get offered this, I'm taking it in the early game. I just am. I love these. I love this. I love building lockets. I love being strong. The second situation is if you already have aura items built, then you can take it. But yeah, better the earlier you take it. Cruiser Crush, you know the deal, build different. We already talked about it. Calculated loss. After losing your combat, gain 2 gold and a free shop refresh. I'm not even sure if this is still in the set. I have not seen it a single time. But if it's still in the set, you just take this. You gain infinite value from this. If you take this, you want to take the earlier on you can, and you want to do a full lose streak style. You gain insane econ, and then you can actually build a really strong board because you get these free shop refreshes. So you lose a few rounds, gain a bunch of gold, you get these free shop refresh, build a strong board, and for the rest of the game, every time you lose, you get a free shop refresh and 2 gold. Like who wouldn't want that? So it is very strong. This was the strongest augment almost the entirety of last set. It was so broken. Anyways, Cannoneer Crush, you know the deal. Cavalier Crush, you know the deal. Celestial, we already talked about it. Clear Mind, if you have no units on your bench at the end of the round, gain 3 experience points. This is not very good to take at the very beginning of the game. You can take it to gain a little bit of an econ advantage. I don't even know if it can be offered at the very beginning of the game, but you can take this, but you're going to be very weak and lose a few rounds, but gain this huge econ advantage if you'd like, if you want to play that type of style. But the real situations you typically want to take this is if you have already stabilized your board. So this is like pretty good to take a second augment. Because if you're at the second augment around it, third, which is on stage 3. If you're on stage 3 and you take this 3-2, I believe now. If you're on 3-2 and you take this, you only want to take this if you have a strong board already. You're not about to make a bunch of moves, especially if you're going to just try to coast on stage 4. If you're trying to like push to a level 8 comp or something like that, or push to a level 9 comp and you already have your stable board and you're planning on like already losing on stage 4 or something like that, then this can be very good. But if you need to make board upgrades, this can be kind of difficult to take because you're going to have to hold pairs on your bench, that sort of thing. So yeah, only take this if you have a big advantage. Or you can take it if you still need upgrades, but it's much harder to do. It takes a lot of skill to work around if you still need board upgrades. So yeah, you can get very lost in the sauce. Cluttered Mind, it's the opposite of this. If your bench is full at the end of the round, gain 5 experience points. I think it's actually 4 now. But this one is generally good to take all the time. Actually, you gain a big econ advantage. You just have to fill up your bench. Now, you will lose a little bit of econ because you're going to lose... you are going to lose a little bit of econ because you're holding all those units on your bench. It is likely they're going to lose econ, but you gain 4 gold every turn for that. So just imagine if you have all on your bench, it's like you have a 40 gold threshold because you gain 4 gold, you gain 4 experience points. So it can be very good. So just think about it that way. It can be very good. The other way it's very good is if you take this as like second augment. I took this today as second augment when I was really far ahead, and when I took this as second augment, I was already at 50 gold. I was already at the 50 gold threshold. And so when I took this, it was free money, baby. I was just had the 50 gold threshold, and it was essentially like I was on a 90 gold threshold because I was gaining the 5 gold from my interest, and then I was gaining the 4 gold via experience points, just converting experience into gold. Very, very, very cool. So yeah, take it mid game usually. But it's fine to take early game. Totally fine to take early game. All right, combat training 2. Your champions permanently gain. We already talked about combat training. Component grab bag and component grab bag plus. These are on the same tier, but they appear at different times in the game. Component grab bag is just good all the time. Same idea as the item grab bag. Component grab bag is better because you can complete the item that you'd like, right? It's not just already completed item. That is why it is gold. These are just really good. Just really good. General augments, very good. All right, cutthroats. If you need items, if you don't need items, don't take it. If you already have all the items you need, then don't worry about it. But I mean, it doesn't hurt to have extra items. But yeah, cutthroat, assassin specific. Take it if you're playing assassin. Cybernetics. We already talked about cybernetics. Devastating charge. That's a cavalier specific. Take it if you're playing calves. Double trouble. Already talked about it. Dragon Alliance and Dragon Horde. These are very similar. They just add different stats. Honestly, like I don't even read the stats. I just take this if I'm going to be playing around dragons. So the dragon trait remains active regardless of how many dragons you have. Dragons gain MR and magic resist, gain a random tier 4 dragon, and this is the same thing except for it gives you extra damage. So attack damage and ability power, gain a random tier 4 dragon. Guys, I've been messing around with this. I just take it whenever it's offered. You can't get offered this at 1-4, but you can get offered it at 3-2 and at later on in the game, 4-2 I believe. Sorry, they changed the augment around, so I get a little bit confused sometimes, but I take this every time it's offered. If dragons are in meta, it is so easy to play around this because you get a dragon and you just start playing around the dragon. And as soon as you see another dragon, you start playing around him and you just build a dragon composition. Each of the dragons serve like different roles. So you'll need to have like a few frontline dragons and a few backline dragons and you're good to go. It's like you're playing the game on easy mode because you just play dragons and you're good to go. It's very fun. I love playing this. So just take this one. Take this if dragons are in meta. If dragons are really strong in the meta, then take it. It's very good. Dragonmancer Crest, you know the deal. Ultra Charge, already talked about it. Essence Theft. Evokers attack steal 5 mana from the target, gain a Lulu. This is very good if you want to play like vertical evokers. So if you're just going to play 2 evoker, if you're just going to play Lulu and Sona, may not be exactly what you want. Oh wait, this is a trait specific one. May not be exactly what you want, but I'll talk about this one a little bit. Because you're not going to get a lot of value from that. You still can gain value because you can steal the mana. If you're carrying like a Sona or something like that, can be very good. But I found the only time I've made this really work is when I was playing 4 Evoker because I was actually playing an ASOL composition, and this was really good for ASOL because he takes forever to cast and he needs to cast a lot. And I had a 4 Evoker composition because I had an Evoker Heart and I had this, so it was pretty good. Or I had an Evoker Emblem, not a heart. Anyways, Eternal Protection. You take this if you're playing Jade units. If you're playing vertical Jade, very good if you have 6 or 9 Jade. If you take this, you should play 6, 9, or 12 Jade. Very strong. Very strong. Evoker Crest, we already talked about it. I mean, you know the deal. Exiles, we already talked about it. Eye of the Storm. At the start of combat, the unit in the center of the board gains 50 ability power and increased to 150 after Tempest Lightning Strikes, gain a Kiana. So you will need to be playing Tempest. And so this would be decent if you're like carrying a frontline style unit because it'll be really hard to gain value from this on a backliner because you won't want to put them in the middle of your board, right? So yeah, more value if you're already playing around, if you're going to be playing around Tempest and you are going to play more of a frontline based carry that can use ability power. Cool. Featherweights, already talked about it. First Aid, already talked about it. Future Sight, know who you will fight next, gain a Zephyr. This one is generally fine to take all the time. I have not taken it a single time in my life because I cannot be bothered to build a Zephyr and I'm not a rat. Build a Zephyr, I'm not really calling you guys a rat. I'm not a rat. Anyways, but this one is generally good to take, but it's really annoying to play around, so I don't ever take this one. All right, Gadget Expert. Direct damage items deal 40% more damage as true damage, gain a static shiv. So this is talking about like static shiv, ionic spark, sunfire, cape, morello, that sort of thing. Items that deal damage by themselves. It's not like scaling on your unit's damage, right? So the earlier you take this, the better. Or if you already have static shivs built, or you already have those type of items built. So this is extremely good to take in the early game. Or if you are like building a shredder type composition, you're doing like a Zaya shredder build, or you're doing like Rage Blade Shiv, QSS. This can be insane, obviously. But the earlier on you take this, the better. So you can build these type of items. Gear upgrades. This is a guild specific thing. Gara, yeah. These are trait specific. Take if you're playing the traits. Heroic Presence. Take if you're playing Guardians. Very good. Especially if you're playing 4 Guardians. Can be very good. Hotshot. It's Cannoneer. Hustler. This is just the hyper roll augment now. If you have less than 20 gold at the end of round, gain 2 gold. I actually think they changed the numbers on this. I think it's like 30. I think it's a little bit different. But the way you usually use Hyper Roll or Hustler, there are 2 ways to use this augment. And the 2 ways you use this augment is if you just want to actually Hyper Roll. If you want to sit there and press the D key forever, you can sit there and get a really strong board in the arrow game. That's one way you can do it. The other way you can play it, and this is the more meta way to play it, this is how I almost always use it to play it, and high elo players use it to play it, is you can get a really strong level advantage because you can just like play super aggressive with your gold by leveling up, and then when you get to the level you want to be, just sit there and donkey roll, and then you can just use this for the whole game. You can just constantly level the whole game, or you can go into mid game with this augment. You can like take it early game and get to mid game earlier than everyone else because you have this econ advantage because you're able to just level with no, there's no downside on stage 2 by being aggressive. Almost no one's going to be over the 20 gold threshold, so you'll just be really far ahead. You can stabilize on a board, and then you can start actually econing up again, get to the late game, and then once you're in late game, just donkey roll it crazy to make the strongest board you can. Because you will still be able to gain extra econ. You can play like really aggressive in the late game and early game. So typically the way you want to play it, play really aggressive early game, play really aggressive late game, stabilize in the mid game, or you can just play aggressive the entire time linearly if you want to. All right, cool. Inspire, that is a Dragomancer specific. Enter Cosmic Gifts, this is Astral specific. This is just insane to take if you're actually going to play vertical Astrals. There's probably 6 or 9 Astrals, very strong. You just gain infinite econ from this. This is better if, I'll just say one thing about this because I played a lot of Astrals. You want to take this before you roll for all of your 3 stars because you will just gain so much econ from this. It's so good if you're playing Astrals. We already know the deal. Jade Crest. Jeweled Lotus, magic and true damage from your unit's abilities can critically strike. Your units additionally gain 20% critical strike chance. So this is really good if you're playing AP champions, because if you're playing AP champions, then you can build an Infinity Edge, and you don't have to build a Jeweled Gauntlet to get that extra Infinity Edge scaling, because you'll already be able to crit. So you can play like Infinity Edge Ao Shin, with no, or Infinity Edge Asol or something like that, and you don't have to build the Jeweled Gauntlet to get the critical strike on your ability. So very good in that situation. If you're playing Assassins or something like that, it's fine because the extra critical strike chance is nice. And if you put an Infinity Edge on one of your Assassins, Infinity Edge does scale off a critical strike chance. It does increase the damage. So it can be decent on Assassins because they naturally in their kit can scale up. But usually the situation when I take this, if you want to build crit and you're playing AP units, it's usually better in that situation. Last Stand, I have not got a chance to play this one, but I can infer a lot of stuff from it. But the first time you would die, instead drop to 1 health. After this effect triggers, your units gain 200 health, magic resist, and omnivamp. So this is just, as described, Last Stand. You're playing Call of Duty 4 right now, guys. We took Last Stand. You're cheesing them out. But yeah, take this if you're really low health and you're about to die. Take it. It can be what saves you. It can be what gets you a better placement. So this one I know is going to be tilting to play against. But yeah, take it if you're about to die. Or like hyper late game, you could take it because you can get this huge advantage. If your placement's already secured, if like your top forward's already secured, like this can be a huge bonus in late game. You know what I mean? All right, Loot Master. Oh, this is if you're taking guild. If you're playing guild, this is just junkyard of this set, but this is a guild specific thing. Take it if you're going to play around guilds. It's really easy to play around guilds, so you can take this pretty much all the time. If you like, earlier the better, of course. Luden's already talked about it. Mage Convergent Conference, not Convergence, Conference. This is a mage specific one. While you're playing mages, this is really good if you want to reroll mages. I'll talk about a few of these, obviously. If you're rerolling mages, this is really good because you will get a mage portal. This is actually not that bad to play in general as just an econ trait because you will get extra gold every round, even if you're not going to play these units. You can actually take this straight up as an econ trait, but it is much better if you're going to be rerolling mages because I took this one time just an econ trait and I just kept getting offered Vlad every turn, dude. And it was not good enough. Mage Crash, the deal. Makeshift, already talked about it. Meditation, already talked about it. Metabolic Accelerator, your tactician moves faster, heals 2 health at the start of each PvP round. This is just an econ based augment because you can take this and you can play like a weak board because you'll get this healing every round. And it's better the earlier you take it. So the earlier, the better. Don't take it late game. I don't even know if you can be offered at late game anymore. I don't think you can. Mirage, the deal. Nomads, that is a scale scoring specific. Cool. Party favors, that is Revel specific, Jade specific. You just take these if you're playing those traits, guys. Personal training, at the end of combat, champions that start Combat adjacent to a bruiser. This is bruiser specific. If you're playing vertical bruisers, take this, guys. Phony frontline, gain 2 target dummies. Take this early game. This is a general very good augment early game. The other situation this is fine is if you have a really, really weak frontline, or you're playing something like Nomsy and you're like solo frontlining Nomsy. Nomsy is not enough to solo frontline usually. So this can be very good with Nomsy to get some extra units on your board. And then your board will just be so full. You have the Nomsy and you have the target dummies, can be very good. Like similar to like playing innovators with target dummies, can be good. Cool. Press the attack. This is a swift shot specific. Rage wing, you know the deal. Reckless spending. I'll talk about this one a little bit. If you purchase both XP and a shop refresh during the planning phase, Shimmer Scale champions gain 30% damage for the next combat phase. Gain a Kanye. This is really good if you are carrying a Shimmer Scale. You need to be carrying a Shimmer Scale. So if you're playing like a reroll Kane build, something like that, it's gonna be very good. But you need to make sure you do this shit. This can be very annoying. And I just haven't had a good opportunity to carry a Shimmer Scale unit, except for Volibear. But when I played Volibear, I wasn't able to use it. So if you're carrying like a Volibear or a Kane, something like that, this can be very good in that situation. Or you're carrying a Zoe hyper late game. You can totally take this. You got to make sure you do the stuff though. Revel, you know the deal. Rich Get Richer. And Rich Get Richer Plus, I believe these are offered at different times. These are definitely offered at different times, or they're going to be in different tiers. Like maybe this one is actually prismatic. Not sure. But it's either going to be offered at a different time or this one's prismatic. They both do the same thing. You want to take this early on in the game if you can. It's very difficult to take mid game unless like maybe this one's the one you're supposed to take mid game. But I do not like taking Rich Get Richer in general. I like it. Doesn't fit my play style. But if you do want to play it, you'll need to be playing a very econ focused style and to take it in the early game. And I will just, and you just try to get maximum value on this. And then you need to stabilize like early mid game, or like maybe your board is actually just like, maybe you're high rolling, your board is strong, and then you just go to late game. But you just don't want to like sit on 70 gold the whole game. You need to play aggressive at some point. Just make sure you get a little bit of value from this and then be aggressive. But just getting 10 gold at the beginning of the game is a lot of value straight up. Like just the base gold is a ton of value. One thing I will say about this, if you guys are watching this at the very beginning of the set, and I would imagine most of you are, I would not take this very much at the very beginning of the set, because it is very difficult to play with an econ advantage early on in the set, because the idea of having a big econ advantage is you need to be able to quickly make a very strong board. But the reality is really early on in the set, you know, nobody really knows what strong boards are. I mean, you can make strong, like I can make strong boards, but I can make a much stronger board a month from now. You know what I mean? Like just because the game will be a little bit more figured out, meta will be kind of like solved a little bit. So I would not take this a lot on your early season grinds, unless it's just the best augment for you. And the other situation, this can be good this could be good early season, but it's really only good if there's something unbelievably broken that everyone is contesting for. Think back to like Sivir from last set, like on launch, Sivir was just unbelievably broken. So you should play Sivir. So you could take this econ up straight to 7, lose every round on the way there, but as long as you get a Sivir, you're good to go. So you could take it in that situation early season, but I would not recommend taking this very much early season, because playing with the econ advantage over a health advantage is much more difficult earlier on in the set, just in general. But you know, hey, maybe you're a god, who knows. All right, Ricochet, that is a trait specific. Salvage bin, gain a random completed item. Selling champions break apart their full items into components. This is better. This is good taken on early on in the game, because you get the random item components, and you can just build whatever is strongest for your board and you can sell. So take it early on in the game. It is not very good to take later on in the game. It can be fine to take later on in the game if your items are just trash and you need to remake all of them. This can be very good if you're about to transition off of your board. If you've already completed your final board, or you're like have like items on the units that you want them on, then you don't want to take this, obviously. So the earlier, the better. Scalestorm Crush, you know the deal. Scorch, this is trait specific. Second Wind, we already talked about it. Secret Snacks. Whoa, I've never seen this one. Trainers have a 33% chance to secretly feed their Dragonling bonus snacks. Gain Tristana, that's funny. That is a trait specific for trainers. Shimmer Scale, trait specific. Again, this one is really good to take earlier on in the game. I already talked about Shimmer Scale. Smoke Bomb, this is for Assassins. Stand United, we already talked about it. Sunfire Board, at the start of combat, burn all enemies for 15% of their maximum HP over 15 seconds, reduce their healing. This can be fine if your team lacks damage, but in general, I just do not like this augment. I never have. I think a lot of times you end up just building healing reduction items anyways. A lot of times late game, the only items you're offered are healing reduction items, so you don't get these effects do not stack. I do not like this augment at all. I would not recommend ever taking it, but who knows, maybe it'll be really strong at some point. But you can take this if you think your team lacks a lot of damage and you don't have healing reduction. Then this can be fine. But I try everything I can to not take this augment. But hey, maybe it's going to be super meta, maybe it's going to be strong. But yeah, I don't know. Take it if you need healing reduction. All right, but I think it's really easy to get healing reduction in plenty of other ways. This is trait specific. This is trait specific. This is trait specific. Three's company. Gain 3 random 3-cost units. This is better. I think you can only be offered this at the very beginning of the game. You would only want to take this at the very beginning of the game. You can take this and just think about it this way. It's 9 gold. So you can take it and you can get some insane 3-cost. Maybe the 3-cost you get is super meta. Maybe you have really good items to play them. That can be really great. If you get 3 trash 3-costs, just sell them. You got 9 gold. You're good to go. So take it at the beginning of the game. Can be a pretty decent econ trait for you. Thrill of the Hunt. Your units heal 700 health. We already talked about Thrill. Tiamat. This is a warrior specific one. Take it if you're playing warriors. Titanic. This is if you're playing bruisers. Take it if you're playing bruisers. Trade sector, gain a free shop refresh each round. This is one that's better the earlier you take it because you can create some really, really strong boards. One thing I will say about trade sector can be a big trap if you are playing a 1-cost reroll build. Because a lot of people think like, oh, I'm playing a reroll build, I should take trade sector. If you're playing a 1-cost reroll build, it can get a little messed up because a lot of times you play a 1-cost reroll. You want to play a weak early game because you're not going to level. So you want to lose streak. You get your best in slot items. Like that's a big advantage of playing a 1-cost reroll. You get your best in slot items. You go to level, and then you econ up, and then you roll down at level 4 and level 5. Whenever you take trade sector, it kind of messes up that whole thing. So you end up having a stronger board, but you're still not leveling. So you're like weaker than other people. So you're not really that strong. So you're still losing. And then you don't get the econ. And when it's all said and done, and then you don't get carousel priority because you're a little bit stronger than you would normally be. And there's going to be other people in the lobby probably lose streaking. So you're not going to get first pick. So you might not get the items you want anymore. And then you're not going to be able to econ because you're sitting here trade sector and you're probably holding the units on your bench. So you're not generating econ. And then when it's all said and done, once you get to the point where you 3-star your units, you're almost in the same spot you would be or behind if you wouldn't have taken it. So think about it, and you're just down a gold augment. You're down a gold augment for the rest of the game. You basically didn't gain an augment a lot of these times, and you were set behind from where you would even just normally be, and you don't get to choose your item. So this can be a huge trap when you take it as 1-cost. Sometimes it works out when you take this as 1-cost reroll, but I almost never take this as 1-cost reroll. But can be very good just in general. Just generally strong augment to take earlier the better. Triforce, already talked about it. True 2s. True 2 is a little bit different this set. So gain 2 random 2-star tier 1 units. So 1-cost units, and you gain 2 gold. So yeah, you can just take this early on in the game. The earlier the better. I think you can only be offered it at the very beginning of the game. It is fine. Think about it this way, it's 8 gold. If you end up not being able to use it, it's 8 gold. It's fine. It's probably going to give you a stronger board than otherwise if you wouldn't have taken it. But I've taken this a few times and it's been useless to me, and I just sold them at 8 gold. That kind of sucks because it is a gold augment, but it's RNG, guys. Take it early game and just hope you get what you want. But it can be good, or it can be kind of okay to bad. Probably Bridge. Units that start combat next to Whispers, that's a Whisper specific. Earth Grab Bag, gain 1 spatula, 1 random item component. This is better the earlier you take it because you can play some like really, you can gain an extra item component. It's just really big value. And then gaining the spatula can give you a lot of direction because you can just like build whatever's for your strongest for your board. You kind of assert your dominance in that. Like maybe you're going to play like Jade Vertical or Dragonmance or something like that. Kind of dissuade other players from contesting you because you already showed that you have them. Other situations this is extremely good is, if you just need more items, you can take it obviously late game. But in other situations, it's extremely good for obvious reasons. If you already have a spatula on your bench, this is a fawn, right? So take it if you already have a spatula, or take it early game if you just want to assert your dominance with these having a little bit extra items and a spatula. Cool, but really good early game because a lot of people won't think about that you have a spatula, and a lot of people will avoid taking spatulas from carousel just because it's hard to play around spatula a lot of the time. Cool. And the bottom 2 are crests. Not going to talk about them. All right, onto our prismatics. Final one, guys. Alrighty. Ancient Archives, gain 2 Tome of Traits. Already talked about how Tome of Traits work, all that good stuff. Take it if you need more traits. Some this is in general pretty good usually, but sometimes you really don't want to take this. Like if you just look at your traits and you already like, okay, my build is kind of complete and I don't gain a lot of value from having more people have some of the traits that are on my board. Definitely there are bad situations to take this, and I've encountered them for sure. But yeah, general fine. But yeah, just make sure that you can actually use tomes. Assassin Crown, already know the deal. Astral Crown, Best Friends, already talked about it. Binary. Your units equipped to 2 items temporarily gain a random completed item at the start of combat. This is really good to take mid game. When you don't have items committed onto your, when you don't have like 3 items committed onto a carry, it can be very good. It can be fine on stage 4 because it actually happens way earlier now on stage 4. It's on 4-2 instead of right before the PvE round. So you can take this on stage 3 or stage 4 is usually your best place to take it. You can take it really early game, but it's a little bit harder to gain early game value. But this does scale really well. So I really like taking it mid game. It can be a very, very, very strong augment. This augment was so broken at gold tier last set, and that's why they moved it up to prismatic. Kind of flew under the radar for a lot of players, but in high elo, definitely you take this, like it's crazy. So yeah, very good to take generally all the time, but make sure you don't have 3 items already committed onto your carry or your late game carries and your late game tanks, and that you can actually disperse items. But yeah, you want to get maximum value on this. Very strong. Blue battery, after casting your ability, your units gain 20 mana. Same idea. If you if it's like good on if it's like a blue buff user, then you can take blue battery. Cool. Same idea as the other the like axiom or whatever, axiom arc. Same idea. If it can replace your blue buff, you know, or it can stack on top of your blue buff. If your your unit has like 50 mana, your blue buff will give you like 30 or 20. They change it all the time. Then you gain this. You can gain the difference. So that can be very good. All right, Bruiser not talk about any of those. Not talk about any of those. They're all trait specific. Celestial already talked about it. Combat training already talked about it. Cruel Pact. This one's a really neat one. Buying experience costs 3 gold instead of, it costs 3 health instead of gold. I have not gotten a chance to play this, but this is exactly how you use it. You want to take it as early as you can. Take it at 2-1. Take it at your first augment, and you can instantly be level 7. Think about that. You can be on 2-1 and you're level 7, everyone else is level 3 and level 4. So you have this huge advantage. So when you take this, you take it, you go to level 7, you have like 5 health left or something like that, and you can't lose around for the rest of the game. If you can get a Soraka, that's awesome, but yeah, you can't lose around for the rest of the game, and you'll be level 7 for a lot of the game. You will gain that natural experience that will get you to level 8. And if you can get a Soraka, it can be really hypey, but essentially when you take this, you just have to play insanely aggressive. So yeah, so take at your own risk, and you need to, if you're not good at playing aggressive, then don't take it because you need to play hyper aggressive. All right, Cursed Ground, gain 2 maximum team size, but 100% increased player damage. It kind of says for itself, guys. If you want to take this, it can be very strong for your team, but yeah, you know the risks. So take this if your board is it. If you think this will make you the strongest player in the lobby. If you're not the strongest player in the lobby, this probably won't be a good idea to take. Or if you're like the second strongest player in the lobby and you have a lot of health, maybe you can take this, right? But yeah, if you have to be one of the strongest players in the lobby, or think that this is going to push you over the edge to be the strongest player in the lobby, it'd be very good. Or if you have a lot of health, you could take the risk, right? Cybernetics, already talked about all these. Double Trouble, already talked about it. Dragomancer, it's trait specific. Electro, already talked about it. Evoker Crown, trait specific. Exiles, already talked about it. Already talked about all these. These are trait specific. High-end shopping. Champions appear in your shop as if they're 1 level higher, gain 8 gold. This is better the later you take it on in the game, because if you take it on in your level 7, you can now have like really good access to 4 costs, right? Because you'll have level 8 odds. And then if you are level 8, you have access to really good legendary odds. And if you are in an insane spot and you can go to level 9 right after you take this, you know, like shortly after you take it, then you have level 10 odds, which are insane. Do not take this early on in the game. It is very, very, very hard to play around early on in the game, because I mean, this can be good, right? You're level 5 and you have level 6 odds, right? That's amazing. But just think about it. Other people have gained 2 random completed items in a Reforger. That is much better than having access to 3 costs when you would normally only have access to 2 costs. You know what I mean? So yeah, this is better the later you take it. Can be very good if you want to play around like legendaries, that stuff, and you're really good at like constructing a board around legendary units. High Roller, gain 3 loaded dice and gain 8 gold. This is better the earlier you take it. There is one other situation you want to take this, but High Roller is extremely good as first augment, because you can use you can go into Google and you can type loaded dice TFT odds, and it'll tell you the loaded dice TFT odds. I think the website is Meta TFT. I don't quote me on that, but I think it's Meta TFT. You go to that website and it'll show you all the loaded dice odds, and there'll be a lot of 1 costs in the game that you can instantly 3 stars. So think about it. You start the game with a 3-starred unit, and usually like sometimes you can only use 2. You only have to use 2 loaded dice. You'll have a 3-star 1 cost unit that'll just carry your entire early and mid game. So strong. Last set, like the most common strategy was to use this for Camille or Alawi. You could instantly have a Camille 3-star, instantly have an Alawi 3-star, be very strong. The other situation you could take this if you have just really good odds for the units you're looking for. Like if you're re-rolling 2 or 3 costs, can be good in that situation. If you look up on the loaded dice thingy and you have really good odds for it, or you just know the odds, you just remember it. Or if you can take this late game if like the odds, if the odds are really good for the units you're looking for. But if it's not, do not take this. If you can take something else, please take something else in the late game, unless this is just absolutely what you need, but it's probably not what you need. Better the earlier you take it. Item grab bag, gain 2 random completed items and a reforger. This is always good, but it's better the earlier you take it. Just like I talked about the other item grab bag, it is an insane advantage having 4 components up on the lobby. That is insane. Like if you get it early in. So the earlier the better, but this in general always good. Cool. Jade Crown, you know the deal. Level up. When you buy experience points, gain 3 additional experience points. You can now reach level 10. This is better the earlier you take it. So you take it at the very beginning of the game. You just need to play extremely aggressive with your XP buys. So you can get level 7 way before everyone else. You get level 8 before everyone else. So you just need to play pretty aggressive when you retake this. Be careful greeting, because a lot of people will think like, oh, I can get level 8 super fast. But you have to think about at the same time, everyone else has a prismatic augment and you took an econ prismatic augment. So you probably still need to stabilize your board mid game, unless you like know you can build the strongest board in the lobby. But like, just be careful with this one. But the earlier you take it, the better, because you just, you gain value every time you buy experience points. You buy experience points at the beginning of the game. So it's going to be extremely good for you there. Cool. This can also be very good late, like really late game. If you have a lot of gold and you were already wanting to go level 9, like if you were going fast 9 and you get this, you're like, oh, bet I get fast 9 for free. And maybe you can go fast 10, So if you get level 10, that's insane. Or you just get level 9 with an extra 40 gold because you took this. Like, just think about it this way. You just took 40 gold. That can be really, really, really insane. Sorry, you just heard my windows. Anyways. Living Forge, gain a random Orn item now and after every 10 combats. So this is one of the best augments in the game, in my opinion. Like it's just, I mean, maybe it won't be at the time you're watching this video, but you gain an Orn item. Orn items are extremely good. And then every 10 combats, you get an Orn item. I think you can only get offered this at the very beginning of the game. And you can get like 3, or you usually can get 3 Orn items. It's very difficult to get 4. I think you have to be on stage 8. Very hard to get there. So you can usually get 3 Orn items if you take it at the very beginning of the game. I took this. It just feels broken. When you take this, you need to be playing aggressive, though. Just know that in general, you need to play aggressive because you are banking on the value you get throughout the game. Because by itself, 1 Orn item is a gold tier augment. It's in a gold tier for a reason. I think it's one of the best gold tier augments, but it's better to play aggressive because you're going to get this value off of extra Orn items, and just build your items because you like just slam your items, play aggressive because you have access to these extra items. Just know you don't get to choose your later Orn items. They just pop out random. You get to choose your first one though. Yeah. Oh wait, no, it is random. You don't get to choose any of them. Oh yeah. So just know that. But I really like taking this one. Ludens, already talked about it. Mage Crown, don't need to talk about it. Makeshift, already talked about it. March of Progress, gain 4 bonus experience points per round. You can no longer use gold to gain experience points. This is better the earlier you take it. There is, and you'll just be like really far ahead econ wise. But there will be like a moment where you can't like, some people will pass you in levels. Like it's usually on like stage 4. People can pass you in levels if they're playing aggressive with their econ. So just know that you can play. Usually you want to take this early game. You get a big econ advantage, but you usually need to play very aggressive on level 6, level 7, because since you are not able to pay for experience points, you need to use that extra econ to make a strong board at the points in the game you're going to be strong. The points you're going to be strong in the game is early and mid game. So play aggressive with your gold. Usually when you take this, a lot of times you want to re-roll around a 3 or 2 cost because it'd be very easy because you will be stuck on level 7 for quite some time. You need to be able to make a board that's going to be strong in that regards. It's very difficult to play around 4 cost unless you're just high rolling out your ass and you get a 2-star 4 cost on level 6 or level 7. But generally, you want to take this as early as you can to gain maximum value, and then play like a reroll 2 and 3 cost. So if you don't want to play that style, then don't take this. Meditation, already talked about it. Mirage, don't need to talk about it. Mystic Soul, don't need to talk about it. New Recruit, gain one team size. That is like getting a Fawn or Tactician's Crown, whatever. I don't really like this one very much. If you really need 1 extra team size, take it. But this one is like a big noob trap usually. I don't like this augment. But maybe you do, and you can take it whenever. But I don't ever take it. I don't like it. Unless it's like, exactly what I need. Like sometimes it is exactly what we need. Like this one unit, if I get it on my board, it just like really opens everything up. But if it's not that, I do not like this. Radiant relics, open an armory and choose 1 of 4 unique radiant items. Take this if you like the radiant items, guys. The radiant items are very strong. The earlier you take this, I think the better, because later on in the game you might already have you might have your 3 carry, your 3 tank items, and you don't have an off carry. You don't really have an off tank you can itemize. So it's really better the earlier you take it. But I love the radiant items; they're very good. Don't need to talk about that. No. Stand United, already talked about it. No, don't need to talk about these ones. Golden egg, gain a massive egg that hatches in 10 rounds. Victorious players accelerate hatch timer by 1 round. I think you can only be offered this on 4-2. Like you can only be offered it late game, but it's much better than it was last set. So because you get to take it earlier on in the game, it's because Augment's on at 4-2, and if you win any rounds, if people are really weak, be good. So take this if you have a big HP advantage. So if you had a really strong early game in earlier parts of the mid game, this can be very good to take. If you're behind, do not take this Augment. But yeah, you can take this and play for first. It can be very good. Think fast. Shop refreshes are free until the end of this round. Traits and other augments do not benefit from these shops. So you can't go like astral shops. You know what I mean? That'd be crazy. Gain 8 gold. So you would only want to take this if you have very fast APM. So if you're going to be able to make decisions very quickly. And if you have a lot of gold, it can be very strong. And if you need a lot of board upgrades, this can be very, very, very good. Other than that, don't take it. If you have grandpa APM, do not ever take this augment. And I also would not take this early on in the set unless you're like a very high level player, or you are, you're very familiar with your comp. It's just really hard to play unless you're extremely familiar with your comp or extremely familiar with your outs for your comp, that sort of thing. So be careful taking this early on in the set. Triforce, already talked about it. Earth grab bag, we already talked about it. Cool. Verdant Veil, your units are immune to crowd control effects for the first 15 seconds of combat. Do not ever take this. Do not ever take this at the beginning of the game at 2-1. Do not. I don't even know if it can be offered anymore. It is terrible. There's no CC in the early game, and you're only gaining value on like 3 or 4 units. So it's terrible. I would also not recommend taking it mid game. I would not recommend taking it on stage 3. Again, there's not a lot of CC on stage 3. It's just not very good. If it's going to be insane for your comp in the late game and you have an advantage, you can take this. Guys, I tried to make this work again today when I was in a pretty decent spot. Fastest 8th of my life because I took it early on. I took it on stage 3. Guys, this is very good on stage 4. It's especially good if you're playing frontline carries like Olaf, Yone, and you haven't built a QSS. You can be like, oh wow, I can build 3 damage items now and feel really good about it. So this is extremely good especially for frontline DPSs. But this can be good for all DPSs because then you don't have to worry about putting that defensive QSS for the late game, because the late game QSS is pretty good in this set. There's a lot of CC going on. These are trait specific. Windfall. So they did something interesting with Windfall. They're all prismatic, but they appear on different spots. Windfall is fine. If you need gold, take it. If you want to take it at the beginning of the game, gain the 20 gold, just know that you're going to be playing with an econ advantage. And again, like I've talked about a lot in this video, playing with the econ advantage is difficult early set. 20 gold is a lot of gold. But again, just be careful early on in the set. But as you get used to what you're playing, this can just be very good to take in general. If you need gold, take it if you need gold. But usually I'd rather take something else. But if you were just poor and gold would solve your problem, then take it. Also, if you're like forcing a composition, if you're like are like a one trick, something like that, this can be very good to take because you're one tricking and you need gold to hit your composition because you're going to force into that. So very good if you're one tricking, or very good if like there's something like I said earlier, there's something in the meta that is so unbelievably broken that you just need to econ up and get to it, like something like War Week or something like that. You can do that. Wise spending, gain 2 experience points when you refresh your shop. This is good. This one's like a weird augment. This is really good if you're rerolling, obviously. And this is also good if you're about to roll it down. It is better. I think the best, like now that augment rounds are really early, or they're earlier now, you can take this on 3-2 or 4-2. In general, it's not going to be super good to take as your first augment unless you are playing a 1-cost reroll build. Then it can be fine. I don't even know if it can be offered as first augment because it's only good in those niche scenarios. But that can be very good. It probably can. So if you're rerolling a 1-cost, or not a 1-cost, sorry, do not take it if you're rerolling on 1-cost. I'm an idiot. If you're rerolling a 3-cost, you can like roll on 6, because a lot of times when you're rerolling a 3-cost, if you're rolling for a 3 cost, a lot of times you roll on 6 because you're also rolling for 2 costs. And you need to stabilize on that stage for stage 3. So it's pretty good on stage 3 if you're going to reroll 2 and 3 costs, because level 6 and level 7 odds have level 6 and level 7 have comparable odds for 2 and 3 costs. So it's not a big deal. But if you're rerolling 1 cost, it can get if you get to level 6, you're probably not hitting your 1 cost anymore that you're trying to hit, or it's going to be very difficult. So it can be difficult in that situation. So yeah, generally you want to take this if you're rerolling for 2 and 3 costs, or if you are or if you're going to take this on like 4-2, you have a lot of gold and you're about to roll it down to find your 4 costs, stuff like that. And you can use that like extra, you essentially gain 2 gold every time you press the D key. So that can like get you really stabilized for stage 4, like with a level 8 board. And that can like halfway get to your progress for level 9. So you can like up your cap because you'll get to level 9 that game. So generally best spots, rerolling 2 and 3 cost for the reasons why I said before. And then if you are about to send it to stabilize, you can take this and give you a big XP advantage in that spot. Anyways, guys, that is all of the augments. Maybe I missed one because maybe Mobalytics hasn't updated and added one on here. But yeah, these are all the augments. I feel very good about what I said about a lot of this stuff, because a lot of the stuff are stuff from last set, guys. But anyways, if you guys think you've gained a lot of value from this video, then please like the video and leave a comment below. Just whatever you want to comment. You can ask me questions. You can say something nice, whatever. Don't say something mean, please. It helps me out a lot on YouTube. And if you like TFT stuff, you like TFT guides, I post guides, VODs, that sort of thing, you guys can subscribe. You want more of me, I stream at twitch.tv, so I stream TFT. I stream weekdays. I stream 4 to 5 days a week usually. But I will be on a 3-week break right now for the beginning of the set. I'll be out of the country, just can't be avoided. Family vacation planned years in advance. I will be in the UK, so I will not be here for the next 3 weeks, but I'll be back as soon as we get back, and we'll come back full force making guides and making VODs, that sort of thing. But yeah, you can catch me there. You can catch me on Twitter. I post there pretty much every day, and I'll be posting while I'm in the UK as well. So anyways, made it to an hour. I knew this would be an hour-long video. I appreciate all of you guys who made it out to all the way here, and I hope you guys learned something. And I hope you have a fantastic day, fantastic night, and wherever you are, I just hope you're doing well. See ya. Bye.